There is a multi-billion dollar industry that is available in over 170 countries, all 50 states, and has not only survived the economic hardship of COVID-19, but has increased its sales. This is the market of human trafficking. Human trafficking comes in two main categories: sex and labor. Sex trafficking can be, but is not limited to, forced prostitution, child marriages, and child pornography. While labor trafficking can be any form of involuntary servitude, debt bondage, or slavery. Human trafficking has plagued the world, including the United States, for hundreds of years, but coronavirus has brought unexpected effects on this twisted industry. In 2019, over 22,000 trafficking victims were identified by the Human Trafficking Hotline. Since the coronavirus pandemic lockdowns, the cases handled by the hotline has increased by 40%. Sadly, this is just a small fraction of the true numbers, as most trafficking goes unreported. This surge raises the question, how can trafficking increase when people are supposedly not allowed to go outside their house and borders are closed? In my 5 months of extensive research on the topic, I have found that human trafficking is much more prevalent than one might think. But as we become informed, we can take on our role as global citizens and fight against the problem in our communities. One of the leading causes of children being vulnerable during the pandemic, according to the United Nations Office of Drugs and Crime, is the fact that they are not attending school in person. Education is the number one tool for fighting child trafficking, but not for the reason you might expect. It's not the actual education they are receiving that is protecting them, but it is the fact that these children are coming in and being regularly checked up on by the teachers and staff and are being kept safe. Everyone who is part of the school system, administrators, teachers, bus drivers, maintenance personnel, food service staff, resource officers, and other school community members has the potential to be an advocate for child victims of human trafficking, which provides an entire network of security for their children. These staff members should be educated to recognize signs and are expected to report any suspicions of abuse or trafficking. Without this network of security, these children are left susceptible to the dangers of trafficking with no one to check up on them. Now, some may argue that they have their parents and family to check up on them. However, almost half of identified trafficking incidents begin with some family member involvement. Another problem that has risen in both child and adult trafficking incidents they have been forced to turn to the streets to find food and any source of income as a result of the economic downturn of this pandemic. This, for obvious reasons, has put both children and adults in more vulnerable positions for human trafficking to occur. Whether traffickers are offering candy to kids or jobs to adults, these lures have trapped these unsuspecting victims and dragged them into awful situations. As a result of people being inside, laid off, or out of school during quarantine, there has been a spike in internet use. Internet is a double-edged sword when it comes to human trafficking. It causes more people to be on social media, and there's a higher demand for pornography. This combination, unfortunately, contributes to a surge in human trafficking, especially to vulnerable groups such as minors. Pornography is closely linked to human trafficking. Often, exploiters force their victims to participate in pornographic videos because they are more likely to make more money when they are able to advertise their women prostitutes as adult film stars, because they are seen as more skilled, knowledgeable, or desirable. It is impossible for viewers to tell if participants in pornographic material gave consent or not, and all child porn is considered trafficking because legally a minor cannot give consent. Porn sites receive more clicks than Netflix, Amazon, and Twitter combined. This industry that already has so much business has seen an 18% jump since quarantine has started, which has increased the demand for new content and therefore more trafficking. With all these problems increased by quarantine, and not to mention the masks lowering people's ability to recognize missing persons, how can we best help the human trafficking crisis? Nelson Mandela said, "Education is the most powerful weapon. Everyone who is part of the school community has the potential to be an advocate for child victims of human trafficking. But first, school community members must learn the indicators of the crime, its warning signs, and how to respond when a student is an apparent victim." There are several courses available online for an anti-human trafficking certificate. There are also a lot of organizations such as the Underground Railroad and Polaris that are active nonprofit organizations working against human trafficking. It is clear that these situations can only thrive in darkness and secrecy. So the more we can drag the situation into light, the less often it is able to occur. I hope that as more people become educated on the signs of human trafficking and report suspicious behavior, more children and adults can be saved and returned to safe and loving environments.